I think we got it going. Great. Okay. So today, for this conversation in prevention health promotion convos, I just wanted to bring Caroline, both you and Justin on. You do totally different things. Justin is working with, I believe, a lot of endurance athletes, right, in the
hmm
normal outpatient setting. And Caroline, you are a geriatric certified specialist. So, and you work a little bit in the hospital setting and then also have your own thing.
Yes.
So, both of you worked with me on PT Health Study, and both of you ended up just feeling like a dashboard would be something good for your practice and good for your knowledge base. The CISRS dashboard. I have to remember that we have new members and some members don't know what we're talking about. The aggregated wearable data system that was developed by Proactivity. So I really just want to talk about your first of all, tell membership what you do. Just tell them what you do, and then I'll get to my next question about you kind of dabbling with the dashboard. So Caroline, why don't we start with you?
Okay. It's going to be a long answer.
That's okay.
so,
We like long answers. Nothing
so,
short with me.
yeah. I split my time between a hospital job where my title there is staff development specialist, but really it's clinical education for PT, OT, speech, both in acute care and the outpatient setting. And I work a lot with the nurse educators in that role too, with hospital wide initiatives. Before I was in that role, I did acute care for 4 years and then switched to outpatient PT, doing mainly neuro and balance and fall prevention in the older adult. I still do a little bit of PT in that role, but it's mainly staff education. And then in my business, I do some virtual health coaching, and then I see some clients in their homes for mainly like a PT maintenance program. So either they've been discharged from outpatient therapy but still need support, or some of them just didn't really have a reason to go back into outpatient therapy, but again, needed more support than they could get from a home health aide or a personal trainer.
Yeah. Oh, so you're like filling that gap that
Mhm.
traditional care doesn't know how to doesn't
Yeah.
know how to feel. I don't mean to say that mean, but like you saw a gap there where people still want care, they'll pay for care, and you provide that care. That's fabulous. All right, Justin, I'm gonna hit you up. What do you do?
So I think there's a lot of similarities in what we do as far as like finding different gaps and doing that. So we work with a lot of I call them like recreational performance athletes.
Ooh.
Um, so I think I just kind of made it up.
I love
Trying to
it.
figure out like how to describe people. So you're basically looking at people who are anywhere after college um, till 70s and 80s,
Wow.
who are active most primarily in endurance sports, but we have a lot of 70-year-old lacrosse players and hockey players and people who were active and are now just basically looking to stay active across their lifespan.
Mm-hmm.
And our goal is to basically avoid any standard PT care.
Hmm.
And so it's a lot of blending strength and conditioning with sort of a health coaching, sort of wellness role, kind of overall behavior modification. We have a dietitian that works in our clinic. We basically try to um, cover as much as we can to um, keep people doing what they want to do and out of the clinic from an injury standpoint.
Yeah, yeah, cool, cool. Because, see, I think both of you give good examples of doing prevention, and health promotion in what seems on the outside to be a traditional setting. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And a lot of people have a hard time, like, making that pivot. Like, we can still look and feel and smell like a regular physical therapy situation, but the experience that you're going to get is more of a whole health experience. So that's great. So yeah, thank you both. You're absolutely right, Justin. You're actually both filling gaps
Mhm.
in care that you all see, but most people don't see. So that's great. So I'm gonna get to just scissors in the dashboard. Justin, I believe that you had purchased one either right before you came on to help at PT Health Study or
Mhm.
right shortly thereafter. And
Basically,
then,
like simultaneously, yeah.
okay. And then, Caroline, you purchased one after PT Health Study, right?
No, it was actually
During?
simultaneous as
Okay.
well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. So what I want to, because I don't know this actually, I really don't know this. What got you interested to help? Because I appreciated that as we were running that project. I mean, I couldn't have done it by myself. And then how did it help you better understand what you wanted to do with scissors in your own practices? I can start with you, Justin, this time.
Sure. So I think we had been playing with how to do something like that in our practice for a while because uh, most endurance athletes are like glued to their watch.
Mm-hmm.
And um, most of them have a Garmin watch. It's just like the brand name. And so we knew what data everybody was getting. And the system that we were using is people would come into the clinic for their semi-weekly, monthly checkup, and we would basically look through their data on the phone. Then we tried like a thing where we tried to get them to like report it themselves. So like go into like a Google form and like tell us every morning what your thing says.
Oh, gotcha.
And that was fairly annoying for everybody. And so that was not like a great user experience. And the minute I saw the PT Health Study and I saw that it was being done with the Garmin system,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, well, this is something I definitely have to be involved in,
Yeah.
because this is like we need this in our practice.
Right.
And so I think it was like, right after I saw something on the what workplace, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
about it, that I like pinged Mike right away and said like, hey, how do I get myself one of these, dashboards?
Uh-huh.
And he had kind of hooked me up with Nick, and a big coincidence, but I had been sort of emailing or reaching out to Garmin separately for a while. And right around the time the PT Health Study was getting underway, the guy at Garmin, somebody found my email and said, hey, I want to introduce you to this guy, Mike, who's running this thing. And I was like, all right, well, thanks. Appreciate it. Already have the connection. But, and so then as we went through the PT Health Study, I was able to convince a bunch of my patients to, get involved with it right away. And I think how we've used it in the practice has just sort of evolved over time.
I didn't know you were turning that idea too, actually.
Yeah.
So when the PT Hall study came on, you're like, oh my God,
Yeah.
yes. You're going to help me out. You're going to do this for me. Yes.
Right. I had actually reached out to a couple of programmers about, how to get involved in doing it and like what to do. And I was like going through costs and what it was going to be.
Yeah.
And then it was sort of as if like, you were looking to buy a house and someone built a brand new house right where you wanted it and no one was living there. And they were like, would you like the keys? So I was like thrilled.
That's fabulous. I did not know that. Caroline, what about you? Like, how did you see the potential in it for yourself? Obviously, Justin was rolling it in his head already. I don't know if you were rolling something similar in your head, or you just were like, this is something that I want to learn. Like, what was your experience with it?
Yeah, so very different from Justin's. There was very little intentionality behind I guess, meeting of the CISRS dashboard. So for a little context, I had started my practice in, let's say, November of 2019.
Okay.
So I had just started seeing a few PT clients out of a yoga studio, getting, a few more a week, very young practice. And then when lockdown came in March, that all went away. I also shifted a lot more of my attention to my hospital work at that time because there was plenty for me to do there. So in the spring of 2020, I was trying to think of like, how do I keep this business alive? What can I do remotely? What do I actually want to do? Because I was realizing, I don't want to be in business just to have a full caseload of PT patients, again, kind of recreating the same issues I was having with working in a traditional practice. So I started a health coaching certification program and actually learned about the Garmin device and HRV monitoring from the woman who runs that program, Jessica Drummond, who, Perry, I know you have known well. And so I got really excited about the idea of just having a in the moment measure of stress for myself initially, coming off of a lot of burnout a few years prior that had led to me going part-time in that hospital job. And so I got a device. She was the one who told me about PT Health Study. I enrolled myself in the study and started learning from my own data in the community. And then when I learned that it was something I could purchase and participate in, I jumped right on with that. More thinking not so much in performance, but how do we get people more aware of what's going on inside of them and more mindful of their own health? Because something I struggle with a lot in my population is, big things come out of seemingly nowhere for them. And I thought maybe this is an insight to, when they're about to exceed their reserves and are on their way to a medical event.
Yeah, no, I think both of you, just from what I know of you and how you utilize your dashboard, I actually think the order of health awareness is taller for Justin with a performance-based clientele, whereas your clientele maybe just want to thrive. So when you give them information about, hey, this is how you thrive, and they're like, oh, that's all I got to look at? That's great. Justin's go through a complete denial of their data, don't you think, Justin? Like,
I always joke around, like, I will get constantly, I'll reach out to somebody based on their data and they're like, yeah, I think my watch is messed up. And I'm like, yeah, I doubt it. It seems like it was working for a while, like you turned it on. Like, yeah, it must be broken, And then the other thing is like, runners and triathletes are pretty good at like justifying new gear. So they're like, watch must be broken. I think I need a new one. And then they get the new one and they're like, turns out, this thing seems to have the same problem. And we could go on for a couple of weeks like that before we could kind of get them to be like, I always use the phrase, like I had a rowing coach in college who used to always say, like, it's never really the chariot, it's the horses that are like the problem. And I was really like, yeah, I think the watch is fine. I'm guessing it's the wearer.
yeah.
But yeah, they deny it all the time.
Yeah, isn't that funny? Isn't I've decided that health awareness is a lot like money, actually. you know? And so, they're like, how do you define wealth? Some people don't have a lot of money, but they feel very wealthy, you know? And some people have great wealth and they always want more, because they're not even in the awareness of how much wealth they have. And so I see similarities with health and wealth, actually. So let's talk about like how you utilize it, and like, because a lot of people think they need to, well, they just don't know how to get started. Like they just, can you speak? Because none of you have 500 people on your dashboard. Maybe you do. Okay. Like you're not, like, this is just maybe an augmentative service, a complementary service right now. Like how did you make the first step, and then kind of redesign it based on what you've learned, and maybe you're still in the experimental phase. I don't know. Caroline, can you speak to that?
Sure. So I have currently 11 people on my dashboard, and that's so far no one's left. So that's been growing since August of 2020. So
Wow.
it's been there a while. It's a slow climb. Still a very small part-time business too. I'm not an established clinic. I waited to finalize the purchase until I knew my first paying client wanted it. And at the time, the PT Health study was still running. So 2 of my family members who were interested in it were enrolled in the study and were getting some level of support that way.
See, I think a lot of people, if I may interrupt you, I'm so sorry. I think a lot of people miss that opportunity, because the opportunity, if you didn't have a dashboard, the opportunity was just, if you can purchase a Garmin, get on the dashboard. I have access to the dashboard.
Right.
And I can practice this whole system with you. So that's fabulous. I'm so glad that was, to me, that was your first step, because you're working it and then kind of learning it. Okay, continue. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. So then from there, I mainly did like free monitoring for family and friends. That's still a good portion of my dashboard. And that was, for me to learn how to do it, I had a lot of learning with the PT Health study, but to learn, what is a valuable service, delivery style, just to have those people on board has been helpful for me to also learn how to do things at more volume. 11 might not seem like a lot, but it's a lot more work than the 4 or 5 I had for a while. So that's been something that's evolved. I would say for the most part, no one reaches out to me knowing they want this service. It's something I offer in addition to my other services. So one of my coaching clients is on the dashboard. One of my PT maintenance clients is on the dashboard. I don't charge them extra for it, but when our formal services come to a close, I will likely charge them like a small monthly fee if they want to continue on the dashboard. There are a couple people that I do paid monitoring for, and that was their daughter kind of tricked them into it as a way of
their adult child. Yes.
Adult child. and it's a couple. So one has a dementia diagnosis, and her geriatrician told her that aerobic exercise was the best thing for her. And then the daughter was able to slide in that, oh, Caroline can do this monitoring for you to make sure you're getting your exercise. And then, oh, by the way, the husband should do it too, just to help you out. But, he has plenty of reason to be monitored as well. Which has been interesting. He's been the one I've been more concerned about on the dashboard.
The caregiver. Yes.
So I would say for me, it's still quite experimental. I'm trying to figure out my own workflow, what people will actually pay for and when. And if it's like a low barrier to entry to me, so someone doesn't have to pay a lot to start working with me and then later on they could upgrade, or if it's something that's more of like a maintenance retention strategy after people finish working with me. Those are things that I keep thinking about but haven't finalized yet.
Yeah, no, I started exactly that way. So I was already seeing clients traditionally, and then I would say, another thing that we could do if you wanted to, after trust in a relationship was established, is that I could monitor your physiology, and that way we could really know if these things are affecting your recovery. And so it was an easy buy-in at that point. So I often think of it as augmentative and not the first thing people are going to come to you with. Justin, how do you approach it? Of course, you have performance people, so they're probably like, yeah, I want to look at my stats.
It's interesting because that's what I thought was going to happen. But similar to how they're in denial that there's anything wrong, they're also in denial that there's anything different that I'm going to see than they're going to see on the app. I also think there's some of them that are like quite aware that I'm going to see something that I'm going to bring up, and so they're kind of like, no, I'm good. I don't like. You don't need to see that. Don't look over here. What we did was first we made sure that all of the PTs who work with me were on there. And so then when in the very beginning, I would just sort of bring up in conversation what we were doing with the PT health study. And that just sparked a lot of conversations. And then I would say that, we could provide a similar service and we could do this. And I would show them when cases arose where maybe I was worried about, hey, you clearly did a really hard workout when we could tell you were going to be sick. Or we could tell you weren't recovered from Friday and Saturday you went out and did a really, hard workout. And look, like, here's how you could have told, right, that's what's going on. But also we can tell that there's nothing wrong. You're not injured. You just pushed yourself when you were down, and we just need to cut it back a little bit. And from the data, I'm not worried about the fact that your hamstrings are sore, or your leg hurts, or whatever. I'm mostly interested in just getting you to cut back a little bit, and everything that you're feeling will take care of itself. And I would often use my data as an example and show them, like, here, look, this is what I saw in my data. This is why I changed my training. This is what I saw in my data. This is why I changed my training. And I usually, for that population, point out the times where in my data I saw that I could push myself harder, because they like to see that, oh, yeah, okay, I can see that I could work harder. And that's how we started to get buy-in from people. And I will say most of the people that we have on our dashboard are people who are paying us for other services outside of regular PT, like whether it's a coaching, like a marathon or triathlon coaching plan, where we build the cost of the dashboard into that plan. And then we will, if their coaching runs out and they don't, we'll offer them the ability to stay on. Oftentimes we use it as hey, you guys have been so loyal, this is what we usually charge for this. We're not going to charge you for it.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's an easy, it's great for like referral sources for that way too. people who, local athletic trainers, people who send us a lot of, business, will say, oh yeah, we'll throw you on our dashboard and they're intrigued by what it can do and what,
Oh,
what
yeah.
we can see. Same thing with a couple of local physicians. We've done really well with a couple of local physicians where we'll have somebody and we'll say, hey, this is what they have going on. Here's 4 months of their data. They're not used to getting that much information about a patient, and they love it. And so then they will tell other people, hey, I want you to go see this guy, and I want you to sign up for their data monitoring thing. I see you already have the watch, you already have the device, and we need to collect more information to figure out why you keep getting these stress fractures or why these other things keep going on. And yeah, your watch is collecting the data, but we need it, we need it in a digestible form. We need it to be analyzed. And we've had a couple of people, over the time who've decided to drop off, but for the most part, once people get into it, and then we'll usually start anybody who's on the dashboard and coming into the clinic, we'll start each visit by looking at their data and talking through it with them. And then we end the visit by how they're going to apply what we saw going forward until we chat again. And so once they see that we're using it and it's built into what they're doing, they don't want to.
So you've made it a culture of your clinic, basically. Yeah. There's a couple of things I hear. One is you've made yourself the term I like to use is a relatable influencer. But look at my terrible data. But I still look great. Y'all see me performing, but look how terrible my data looks like. My data looks worse than yours, but I stayed healthy because these are the decisions that I made. So I think for a lot of your clientele, you have to make that relatable influence. I often do that with, same thing happens in middle-aged women. They're like, but I'm like, no, your body battery is better than mine. Look, you got to drink 3 glasses of wine. I drank half a beer. Look at what's going on. You're killing it. I'm a sympathetic mess, And so I think that's super, super helpful. And I like how each of you have been creative with your opportunity to just it's not even buy-in as much as it is, this is kind of a new norm. This is how we manage your health now, So, and for you, Caroline, the interesting thing is the adult child actually felt it, it was normal for her and probably feels you're probably a blessing for her. Having dealt with aging parents myself, you're probably a blessing for her because she knows that someone's looking out for her parents in a physiological way. That's super exciting. I think people get paralyzed by they think they have to do it perfectly and successfully. And it sounds like both of you at different phases are still very much in the experimental phase. As wearable technology becomes kind of a normal approach to managing musculoskeletal conditions, health conditions, just really anything. So I get asked, I have a lot of calls during the day. People want to understand what CISRS is, how to utilize it, just how to understand it and why we should be doing it. So I'm going to turn the main question I get over to you guys to answer, which is, why should I be doing this? And how should I be doing this? Those are the two things that I get the most. So So I'll let each of you answer to kind of help membership in case they're just like going, I kind of want a dashboard, but I don't think I could do it because Justin's got that clinic and Caroline's got the older adults and their adult children want her to take care of them, but I don't have that. Like, why should we be doing this as conservative care professionals? Let's answer that first. Caroline, you want to shoot? Oh, go ahead, Justin. Go ahead.
Right. I think, so what I tell people is that the information's there. And people are, like, we all know people are really bad historians, especially when it's about themselves. And the data doesn't lie. And so more information is always better. And if you're looking to be as helpful and as good a resource as possible, the more information you have about them that is objective and not sort of clouded by what they're telling you, the better service you can be to them.
Like some more precision in your care for them.
Yeah. I mean, I'll see someone, and they'll say like, hey, I'm not recovering from my runs the way I used to. Like, I think I need to do whatever and do this stuff. And I'll say, well, how are you sleeping? And they'll say, oh, I sleep great. I'm in, 9-10 hours of sleep every night. And I'll be like, all right, well, it says 5 here. And so they're like, yeah, that thing can't be right. I'm like, well, it's not wrong every night. So how about we try and just like up that a little bit and see what we can do. And then they come back and they're like, all right, that worked. And it turns out I didn't need that like super crazy supplement package or any of this stuff. I just needed to be honest with myself about what I was doing.
So your why for the other professionals listening would just be to allow you to really have more precise care with the people that you're dealing with. What about you, Caroline? Why do they need to maybe consider this?
I think the general why is similar, is the individualized holistic care, and the device and the dashboard is an awareness tool for that. So with a lot of my patients, even in the outpatient arena, there's a high level of medical complexity. There's a high level of anxiety for me as a provider, prescribing exercise, kind of guessing, not knowing if they're going to tolerate it. Usually there's sleep issues, diet issues, social issues. So it gives me great relief if I can have extra information to see what they're doing, the majority of their time, since I'm only with them, let's say 45 minutes. So I guess that's my why, is to make sure that I'm giving better care and for them to realize that these holistic approaches do work as well. Because there's a lot of, I find the older patients tend to be a little bit more skeptical that their sleep could impact anything, or only drinking coffee and diet soda might not be the best idea for their hydration status or whatever it may be. So to have that extra information available, it gives me a lot of peace of mind, and I try to convey to the patient that it can take a lot of the guesswork out of their healthcare.
I think both of you have somewhat mentioned this. Like, I often say, I don't know how I would treat if I didn't have that information. And I don't know if you guys have been using it long enough to where you're there, but and I can go both ways with it. Sometimes I can listen to a person who's not on the device and they can tell me about what's going on in their health, and I automatically get a picture of what their data may look like, and I can still help them in that way without a device. But then I get to a certain point in their care where I'm like, if we had this information, then we could really zero in on it. And that's what I really hear both of you saying. So how, if someone is just interested in, and they've never been on a wearable before, and they decide they're going to do like just the basic, Garmin device, and they're thinking about bringing it into their practice, what would be your advice for helping them get started just with that idea? What do you guys think?
I would say to do it for yourself first. Study yourself as a patient and learn what your data does. I think it both helps you to understand the system better, but also can get you excited about it and be able to talk about it a little bit better to your patients. Like, for example, I learned why I got so burned out all those years when I went back to working shifts of acute care in 2020. My data was off the charts every shift I worked. And I was like, oh, maybe, this type of work just isn't compatible with my physiology, even though I was good at it and liked it, it took a toll. And so that was eye-opening for me. Or like being on Zoom for hours on end will also set off my data. Things like that I wasn't aware of before got me excited about it and thinking more critically through it. So I think that's a good place to start. And then, it's up to you whether you expand it to some of your current clients who you think would be interested in it and safe to ask them, or if you start more with friends and family. I think either approach or both at the same time is fine.
What about you, Justin? What do you say?
Yeah, I would say experiment and play, and then talk to your patient population about what you're doing, and you'll be surprised how many of them are so interested.
Oh,
I think anytime in our practice, anytime we try to do anything different, I will intentionally, and some of it is just like a business strategy. I'm trying to figure out what people might be interested in, how they might respond to different things. But, when we first started doing the dashboard, I would just leave it up on my computer. Obviously, with my data, so it's my name, there's no patient information up there. And people will ask what it is, or I'll look through something on my watch and say, I'm just curious to see like what my body battery's doing, or like, man, that was like a stressful Zoom call. Now I want to see, I'm curious. And as you're experimenting on yourself and talking to your patients about what you're doing, they'll want to be part of it. And you'll figure out which things you bring up. Like, hey, is it when I bring up my training load, or is it when I bring up my body battery? And then you make a note when you're trying to talk to people about it, how to go about the conversation. But I think that by doing it and getting in there and just playing around with it is the best thing to do it.
Yeah. No, I think that's, you're doing almost discovery within your clinic population. You're just trying to figure out what are they interested in, and you're not making the assumption that everything. You're inquiring what is it that they may be interested in. That's fabulous. That's fabulous. I will say this, and then we'll wrap up. One of the things I learned from PT Health Study, actually, it was the model that I acquired from you, Justin, and your patient that was on the dashboard, I believe it was your patient on that, which I can't say his name, but you know who I'm talking about. Yeah. You know what dot I'm talking about.
Yep.
That was also on your dashboard. and I had Sundays, and he had a robust social activity level. His intensity for social activities was really high, and so it's worth it for me to also say that in addition to experimenting on yourself with the Garmin, that at the APHPT we also have the community dashboard, and the model was based on that client of yours, Justin, just to let you know, because one day I had to outreach to him, and I saw in his information that you were the provider. So I also, since we were working together on the study, I also just let you know, like, hey, I just contacted him. This was what's going on. And then he immediately got in touch with you, probably for secondary validation of what I was saying, which was fine. But then I thought, what a great model that is. So even if you hadn't, I know you look at your dashboard every day, but even if you hadn't looked at your dashboard that day, or let's say you're a provider and you didn't own a dashboard, then I, as your trusted colleague, just contacted you and said, hey, your client, your patient is not looking within his norms, so you may want to give him a call. And so I just want you to know the APHPT community dashboard is modeled after him.
I'm going to have to let him know.
Because it became like it was many, many weekends I got to know him.
It was a very regular occurrence with me.
Yes. So that's the third option, and I can't end the call without letting membership know that. So would it be okay if anybody in membership chatted you? Of course, I'm putting you on the spot, so now you can't say no, but chatted you via workplace or sent you an email via your APHPT address, just to kind of, if they are thinking about it, just for you guys to give a little more insights, because I know we didn't really dive into a lot of what you're experimenting with and what you're learning. Would that be okay for them to do? Okay, great. That'd be perfect.
Definitely.
Do you have any inspiring words to give to membership, whether it be about wearable data or just prevention, health promotion in general?
I think I would say that since I've really been focusing on this prevention, health promotion model, your impact is far greater than you realize on people. And so, I'll help somebody stay healthy for a marathon and think like, man, that was amazing. And then they'll explain to me that they ran that marathon, but then they were able to carry their grandkids up the steps or, something to that effect. And every now and then I get these notes from people that it's just like, geez, if I was really, not focusing on this help, I'd be missing this piece of it. And so your impact is far greater than you realize. And so it's a very good place to be in.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. Caroline, can you follow that?
That's a tough one to follow. And I do have to tell you, in the spirit of full disclosure, I did get the alert on my watch to breathe just a minute ago, asking me if I was too stressed. So, we're not immune to.
That's great. That's great. That's great. Yeah, the pressure.
For me, this work in the prevention, health promotion world, using data as a tool in that, has kind of reaffirmed why I went into healthcare. Nice. And given me an avenue and my patients an avenue to actually address their problems from the root and for the long term. I had to be really trained in doing episodic care by my clinical instructors and my supervisors in the work environment. And I always hated it and resisted it, and they told me I kept my patients on too long. And you know, now that I've actually looked in Medicare guidelines, I was keeping my patients on too long too. But to have this shift, the results have just been so much better, and I actually feel like I'm not working as hard. And I'm like wondering why my patients are still sticking with me and paying me for these services. But they're really getting better, and they're being listened to, and we're starting where they want to start and going where they want to go. And it's just been such a freeing experience for me.
That's lovely. That's lovely. Both of you are functioning as health advocates, in my opinion, just like that term, I learned that term really through Operation Mist and what they're doing in the Black Maternal Health program. But each of you, I hear that now, and I see that from everybody that's using the wearable data in a way that promotes health. You're functioning as a health advocate. So what Justin was saying with maybe someone who can actually live after running a marathon and not just crash, that's helping them. You're being a health advocate for that person at really one spectrum of the level of health, and you're doing the same, Caroline, at the other spectrum. And both of you are right. It's very rewarding work because whether you know it or not, you're making a huge impact. And then every now and again, they just say something to you, and you're just like, wow, all I was doing was teaching you about sleep, but it makes a huge impact. So thank you both for coming on and sharing your stories. And thank you both also for allowing any member to reach out to you. I appreciate you both.
Thank you, Perry.
Thanks so much.